Welcome to Helen Bulkeley Talks With, and I am so excited to bring you the couple in today's interview who can finally reveal their big secret. Lili Zhu is from China, and sailing a laser, she took the Olympic bronze in Beijing 2008 and won the gold in London 2012. She faced a lot of struggles on the way and often went against the grain of her peers, her leaders and her parents. But she sought out Jon Emmett, who is a sailing coach from the UK, and he had huge influence on her sporting journey and, as you'll see, on her personal life too. So please do hit the like button, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments, because this is a success story, but a bit of a love story too. Lili, here it is. Thank you so much for sending this to me. I absolutely loved it. I couldn't put it down. I was absolutely fascinated by your book. And it's really cool because it highlights the differences very, very clearly between Eastern and Western cultures through the eyes of someone in sport, which was really, really refreshing. I wonder whether we could go right back for those that don't know, and how you started as a professional athlete at 10 years old, and a lot of the difficulties you faced on your journey to the top.
So back into my 10-year-old, I used to be a swimmer and training 2 hours every day after school. And then one day I remember the Shanghai sailing team optimist coach and came to the swimming pool and trying to pick some swimmers and into the sailing team, because she felt if those children who can swim, they probably braver on the water, on the open water, because in China, not everyone can swim, and only a very small percentage of people can swim.
And they're also less likely to drown if they fall out the boat.
Yeah, and then so my optimistic coach bumped into my parents, and then probably she observed my parents' height, quite good for single-handed dinghy, and she approached to my parents. Actually, I didn't see Julia, my optimist coach, at the very beginning. It was not until after I finished my swimming session that my parents told me that, would you like to try sailing? At the age of 10, I switched from swimming to sailing, though that was quite a difficult decision for my parents. Like for me, I'm not that mature at that time. I don't know much about the meaning of family and the meaning of what I mean to my parents. I just feel, oh, it's a lot of fun and then so much more interesting than swimming, and I would like to do sailing. And to my parents, it's a lot harder because I'm the only child for my parents, and then joining the sailing team is unlike swimming team. Like swimming, I can still go back every day, where sailing team, I will have to travel around the nation. So in the winter, we will sail in southern China, whereas I live in Shanghai, it's the east part of China. And then we only got the opportunity to come back once a year, which is very, very hard for my parents. But in the end, they let me choose, let me decide, but just warn me, Lili, whatever happened in the future, you have to keep going and never give up, because that is your own choice, not us.
He had no idea at that time what it would lead to and how sailing is such a huge passion for you. But I think it must have been very difficult for both you and your parents, as you say, as a single child. But also you had other things that you were having to deal with, didn't you, with your eye and your ear, that you had to face then pretty much on your own because you were away from your parents.
Yeah, my left eye can barely make out any specific character. I can tell what color and then very blurred image, but I'm mainly using my right ear. My right ear is fine, very normal. And then for my hearing, both ears is just half the listening or hearing ability of ordinary people. By living together with my teammates, it makes my daily life even harder, because they are not mature at the time, and then they joked me quite a lot. And when I struggle to hear exactly what they say or grasp what they mean, I said, pardon me, I said, excuse, could you repeat? Like they just make fun of me and they say no, and then making me feel quite isolated. And that's why I become gradually more and more introvert. I think nowadays I feel much better because I have hearing aid to use, and then I think most adults are more understandable, more caring, especially after I moved to the UK. I feel, wow, I couldn't have been cared more for people like me, a little bit disabled, whereas in China, we're yet there. We're catching up, but not yet there, like the UK level. So I feel much, much worse, I must admit, when I was a child to deal with my hearing loss problem.
I just think in some respects China doesn't like to admit there's any disability, you know, things like Asperger's or things, or probably more recently sort of homosexuality and all these things in China, that it's just not admitted that they exist. So I think unfortunately they were a lot less tolerant to hearing and things.
That leads to the cultural difference. Topic one is as soon as I came to the UK, I couldn't help noticing so many disabled people on the road, and then just say, well, in China, they don't come out.
Yeah.
What's really obvious throughout your book is your mental strength, and how I know you did a lot of meditation for training and a lot of visualization. And I wonder whether, because you said you became more of an introvert and you had such a tough beginning, that's when you sort of looked more inside yourself, and that's where your strength came out.
I think in a way, that's a blessing in disguise. So because I don't enjoy that much time communicate with my teammates, and then I spent more time to myself into reading books, into learning, and then utilize those knowledge I've learned from those books. And English is one of the
it's the language of sailing, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel it's such a great tool for me to approach to the international world of the sailing family. Whereas without English, I would just be still confined in China without knowing what's happening outside China. And I waste much less time than my peers, I would say. And because we're not going to school as normal students in China for all the athletes. That's the case for our Chinese sports system. So once we join professional team, we only do very little study. But me personally, I just enjoy reading and learning something for myself. And then once I use on my own training, or so, as you mentioned, the psychological part, using rehearsal and trying to make myself stronger inside out. And it turned out to be very, very helpful for my sailing career.
To start with, I just thought she was bloody rude, because you'll be talking to her and sometimes she'd just walk off. Just walk off. And I worked out if there's no eye contact, nothing's going to go on. I had it once when we were working together in Portland Harbour. We started a upwind tuning run, and I came across as Rabbit. As I tacked, my kicker simultaneously blew, and I was screaming and screaming for Lili to stop. But of course, at this point, she's upwind of me, and she didn't hear. So she just carried on for another, 800 metres. And I wondered, if she didn't hear, whether she was just going to go straight up the Chesil Beach, over the road, keep on going, because she was so focused on her sailing that she never once looked round and realised poor Jon was, broken boat.
Yeah.
Oh, you never know, Jon. She might have known you were in trouble and just thought, oh, I think I'm just going to keep going.
Get away. It has happened.
But Jon, when you came on the scene as coach, I know that Lili had contacted you and you started working together in 2011. But
ironically, through Facebook, which is banned in China. That's another thing which
you have to use VPN. Yeah.
Yeah, but Lili, it's like from the word go, you knew there was something different out there. And you had to have been so brave to have gone against what your leaders were saying and your peers were saying and all the advice. So how did you find that sort of self-belief to keep knowing that what you were doing was going to be right for you? And in this example, go and get Jon to coach you, because that would further your sailing.
I will give all thanks to the sport of sailing. I would say sailing, which rescued my whole life. I couldn't imagine without sailing how my life would end up. nowadays. But yeah, I feel as soon as on the water, I'm equal. And then I've been given the same opportunity to compete against my rivals, against my teammates or anybody else. Just like when you have the competition, even in school, you try to compare each other's score, etc. It is only when on the water I feel, wow, I've been given the same opportunity, and I would really like to prove myself, and I don't feel despised or and then I just feel, oh, that's my chance to work really hard and to prove I can do something great as well as other normal kids. So that the inner strength came from the sport of sailing, and then once on the water, I can see I got the potential, and so long as I work hard, and I can beat them. So that's sort of giving me the platform to communicate with the rest of the world.
But just for sort of the people at home who don't know so much about China and how extreme it is, the Supreme Leader Mao literally burnt books to get rid of knowledge. And Lili's parents would actually say to her, and this comes from the Cultural Revolution, that the more you read, the stupider you get. Because they wanted a population who's uneducated, don't think for themselves, very docile, so that the leaders could get the population just to go along with whatever they wanted to do.
I wouldn't say they wanted a population uneducated. I would say they just want to, the older generation always want to control the younger ones. So if we read more books and know more than them, they know they will lose control. That's what they fear. It's not they don't want us to learn or improve. Yeah.
I grew up sailing, and every weekend my parents would take me to events, and then we'd go home, and very different to Lili's experience of leaving home and then full-time professional athlete at 10. So what a shock was it for you, Jon, and probably realising you had quite a lot of work you had to do?
Well, yeah, I think I probably negotiated the worst ever contract, because I did assume we had days off and rest days and things like that. I mean, that was a language barrier, like rest day. And you look around and, you know, they say 37% of statistics are made up on the spot, but, you know, 70% of the team had back injuries or other overtraining injuries. And yeah, it was just relentless. Keep on training, keep on training, keep on training. And maybe if you're injured or ill, you stop. But so for that was very different. So normally they would get up very early in the morning and run before breakfast, and they would just be forced to do it. So they would run at the slowest possible pace they could keep going. I think it's a very slow pace, you know, and then I'm trying to bring in much more high intensity training. So you're looking at obla level rates, making sure you're always training after breakfast. So without too much of exaggeration, they were doing sort of a 5 to 9 day, and I wanted to do a 9 to 5 day, and they just thought I was a lazy Englishman or something, I guess. And also, you know, venue specific training, sailing is incredibly important. And one of the biggest battles I had was just to do training in Weymouth, because the leaders were much happier in China. So they didn't really want to travel, and we were lucky that I knew Weymouth very well. Otherwise, maybe it would have been a different story. But all these things that we absolutely take for granted. I mean, you look at how incredibly organised the RYA are at training, you know, starting to train and learning about venues years and years in advance. China just wanted to stay at home, and that was a big eye opener. But I was probably a bit naive when I got on a plane. I mean, the first thing I did was book a flight to Shanghai, cheapest flight, non-refundable. This is non-refundable, whatever. A few days before I flew, China said, "Oh, we want you to go somewhere else." That was it.
We're very changeable.
Unbelievable! Like, you to lose £1,000 flight, and so that was a real eye opener for me. So yeah, I learned a lot fairly quickly, and hopefully it's made me a better coach. But I'd be lying if I didn't say I had a pretty hard time, because we're all used to what's normal for us.
Yeah, and I think that's really important what you say there, John, about what's normal for us, because it's just Lily's just in the book highlighting the differences. And as the further I read through the book, your name is mentioned so much, John, and I sort of thought, God, you're incredibly inspiring. The fight you had to keep that self-belief for you as well, saying, I know this works, and I know everyone against me, everyone here is against me, but I've got a feeling, and that's probably why you guys both sort of had the same thinking, the same thought process, that there is something out there that we know we can do. But Lili, I was in Qingdao for Beijing 2008, and I remember when you were on the podium, when you got your bronze, and this was before you'd started working with Jon. How different was it, your Olympic road to 2008 and then to 2012, and effectively a different system of coaching and to get there?
Yeah, I think for the 2008 campaign, I was mainly coached by my Chinese coaches. And also we spent a lot of time training in China. Then I think in terms of sailing level, 2012 campaign, I become a much all-round sailor, whereas in 2008, probably I'm good in this, wind strength, but I'm not good at enough in the other. Whereas for 2012, Jon and I, since I invited Jon to the Chinese sailing team coaching the radio girls, he's really emphasized, for example, to be good in all wind range, as well as I think at the very beginning, Jon tried to sort out my injuries and then bring some more scientific training method instead of always overtrain, which caused my from head to toe or lots of injuries. And then also I think for the 2012 campaign we spent more time training overseas, and Jon's trying really hard to fight for us and training more time in Weymouth as well. Yeah, I would say the 2012 campaign, though it was much shorter for me, probably I've only campaigned for 1.5 years, but I would say every single day of training is so much more effective. And compare with in the past, probably even though we sail 5-6 hours every day, but it's sort of a waste of time on water and then only cause more injuries. Whereas like Jon will ask us to focus on 1 point or 2 points, and then once we finish it, we can come ashore after 1 or 2 hours, really intensive training instead of spending lots of time on the water. So training with an aim is very important.
But I think Lili is sort of very kind in terms of talking about her injuries. For me, I was actually worried that the team were going to literally put her in a wheelchair. So in over 20 years of coaching, I mean, Lili really had the worst core I'd ever seen. So when she started getting lower back pain because the tummy muscles weren't strong enough, they put on a belt. So imagine a normal weightlifting belt for doing really heavy squats or being put in a corset. They did that. And then as time went by and the pain became even worse, they put on a second belt. And I think, you know, if she was doing a campaign for 2020, she would probably be wearing 4. So all these belts did was just completely switch off the muscles. I mean, I've never seen it in her life. So I did a few standard tests because obviously fitness and nutrition is part of my expertise. You wouldn't know that to look at me, but that's another story. But I got her to lay down, and literally if she tried to lift her head up, not a normal sit-up, but just lift her head, her tummy would pop out because those muscles didn't work. And you could see the section of her tummy which was covered by the belt, literally didn't work. So if nothing else, you know, I was going to try and make sure this poor girl didn't end up in a wheelchair. And if you look at the regattas circa 2010, I mean, Lili was just doing 1 or 2 days racing and then having to retire because she was in so much pain. And then she was having, you know, various sorts of treatments like acupuncture and scraping and cupping and all these things, which are fantastic for treating the symptoms, but do absolutely nothing to solve the root problem. And I saw this a lot with all the Chinese athletes. So personally, probably my webcam isn't good enough, but you can see it looks like somebody tried to chop my head off. I've had a triple spinal fusion in my neck because of various. So for me, Pilates was very much getting back to normality. But yeah, my own injury history meant that I was able to help Lili, but I still wish that she'd had a Western coach 10 years before, because then she'll probably still be racing at a high level now and injury free. So I apologise in advance to any young sailors I coach if I seem a bit like anal about good hiking technique. It's because you don't want to you don't want to have any of the injuries that we've had.
Yeah, I want to add a little bit is that by just hearing what Jon's talking about, absolutely very poor core. It doesn't mean we don't train core in the past. It just probably, I think it will be a very useful message to everybody. Don't just focus on having a six pack. Or we did do lots of abs and then lower back back exercises, but it's actually those inner muscles, small muscles, that helps the most to support the spine, to support the lower back. And then that's when Jon introduced Pilates to me, and then I gradually got rid of the belt.
Yeah, I think we just take for granted all the things we have in the UK in terms of training expertise. I'm sure we could do an entire webinar just about the nutrition side of it. I just remember sitting in a caravan and watching, I'd hate to think, maybe 5 litre containers of soy sauce and oil just going down like that every day, which is why on the positive side, China is world leading in stomach cancer and these sort of things, because there's an absolutely direct proportion to the amount of salt you have in the diet and the chance of you having stomach cancer.
God,
So,
you guys, what a journey you went on, and it must have been a huge leap of faith for you as well, Lili, in trusting him. I know he wrote these books that you loved, and that's what inspired you to go out and meet Jon. But also, I didn't realise that about you, Jon, that you had you had to take 7 months off. So I'm sure there's.
You didn't miss me in 7 months.
I didn't.
You didn't notice I disappeared in 7. You see, I'm obviously not very memorable. 7 months. Oh.
I didn't know. I'm so sorry, but then you really were coming from a place of understanding. So for Lili, you were plagued by all these injuries, and I just couldn't. There would have been no point. There would have been no point in your sailing career that if you just said, you know what, I'm exhausted and I hurt and I want to stop. No one would have been. It would have been absolutely forgivable for you to have stopped because of everything you went up against. But I guess knowing that Jon had some truths because he'd been through it and he knew what he was talking about, is that kind of what kept you going? Because these injuries you were in agony in competitions.
I would say it was harder work maybe than Lili remembers, because one of my biggest battles was to get her to do Pilates in the first place, because obviously if you have lower back issues when you're doing just simple things like roll downs, Lili couldn't even roll down pain-free. So Lili's logic and Chinese logic, where if it hurts, I don't want to do it. And that was a really big battle for me now. And it's very ironic because she does it every day. And it's quite frustrating when you're trying to watch Game of Thrones and somebody's doing Pilates directly in the way. But all these things, because it's new, it's a really big thing. And that was a bit of a battle, wasn't it, to get there?
Yeah.
You did then go on to win the gold medal, which wasn't awful. So after everything you'd gone through, Lili, that realizing all the differences and the struggle and the injuries, and then you stood on top of that podium and you got the gold. So how sweet was that moment?
Yeah, I feel not only I realized my own personal dream, but also many generations of Chinese sailing dream as well, because I just remember when I first joined the sailing team, and then all my older teammates, when they were competing at the international level, my teammates, they just joke that they have to count from backwards. So the last one, last two, last three. And then later on, after a few years I've been in the team, and then they more and more Chinese sailors managed to go into the Gold Fleet. And then in 2004, top 8, which is, I think, the 7th place in Europe class. And when they hand on that opportunity to me, it's my chance to carry on the progress. I did manage to win a medal first of all in Beijing Olympic Games, and then making another step forward by winning the gold. I just really feel very blessed to be the one who was born at the right time to pick for the Chinese sailing. So yeah, and that's why I guess why the Chinese Olympic Committee decided to select me as the flag bearer for the closing ceremony. My father, I remember he joked, I have no problem to sleep after you won the gold, but I really couldn't sleep after learning that you were selected as the flag bearer, because we have so many gold medalists, probably 50-ish Chinese athletes won gold in London, but there's only one to be selected as flag bearer. So that's the moment to make my father really, really proud.
You're very modest, because I mean that comes across in the book and when you speak, because you did it, you know, you won it, it was you, and I remember it very well, and I thought it was amazing, and I've interviewed you since, and it's an incredible story. But there's been some more to your story, hasn't there? Because I know for 2012 there were points that you and Jon couldn't even see each other or communicate, and he was your coach. So that sort of leads on to the next part of the story, doesn't it? A little secret that you guys have been hiding.
In my memory, probably after half a year working with Jon, he did try to express his feeling towards me, whereas I just see him as a coach. But a lot of rumors already spreading out, because not only the Chinese, but also some Western sailors, they will come to me and say, Lili, are you together with Jon? Are you going out with Jon? I said, no, he's just my coach. Honestly, he's just my coach. And then I think probably by suspicious of us having a relationship, then my team trying really hard to stop us communicating with each other or see each other. So apart from training, literally we can't see each other. We can't even sit and eat a dinner together. So quite often we just communicate by message. I remember I was living one floor, the same room, one floor above Jon, but we can only talk by message or emails. I think the team just worried of us going into a relationship which will affect our campaign. Understandable. But at that time, we're really just coaches and sailors, but probably, I don't know why Jon started to feel towards me. Maybe you can explain a little bit.
I think I'm probably just a bit more emotional. The experiences, I mean, some are so strange. I remember being in a garage because we weren't allowed to go cycling. Being in a garage on a turbo training for 3 hours with a Chinese person just sat there watching us in a turbo on a turbo trainer for 3 hours, which was a very strange thing. Yeah, I think in hindsight, again, it probably helped us a great deal because the time was so limited. Lili had to be incredibly focused on what I said. I mean, some of the things, it was out of a James Bond movie. In Melbourne, we were climbing over a fence to go to the gym together at 5:30 in the morning while everyone was sleeping. I think most people who've seen me on the circuit know that I have a big blue transporter van with my name written on it in foot-high letters. So I was borrowing my mum's car to visit her in the athlete village to do briefings and debriefings. I bought a very small waterproof camera, which was the Panasonic FT5, and I used to pop it into Lili's buoyancy aid at the end of session, and every bit of video I did of her I talked over so she could just take the memory card out and look. And I still do that now. If people wonder why I'm always talking over the video I take when coaching, it's because I had no choice for a year and these habits stick. So hopefully that's a good thing. But yeah, I'm a much warmer person than Lili. I told her on you know, the 23rd of December 2011, I loved her. We got together on my birthday. I proposed to her on her birthday by the Olympic rings. Lili's not quite so quite so warm, to be honest.
Yeah, Jon first expressed his feeling at the end of 2011, and then I just say let's focus on the London Games. And then after the Olympic Games, he obviously mentioned a few more times, but I just literally have no feeling towards him. But I used to joke that I would like to find something like him, but not exactly him. I don't know. Well, I can tell the reason because probably one from the appearances, we don't look very matching. I always have the hierarchy, or in my mind, which been told by the Chinese, you have to be matching. You have to find a handsome man taller than you and have good background and family, etc. But for Jon's personality or character, I just feel very happy about everything of the inner him, but probably the outside him doesn't attract me enough.
It's too hairy.
Too hairy, and then not tall enough, and then what else? I think the biggest thing stopped me getting close to him is the everyday hygiene habit. So, for example, Jon can live in a messy room without noticing it, whereas I can't bear. So
I did grow up on a farm.
Yeah,
it's quite hard to be tidy living on a farm.
Not just me, myself, and the whole team, the whole Chinese team, we just couldn't bear his everyday habit. Like well, it's very normal for Westerners to walking with bare feet on the ground or even outdoors, but we just feel, oh, it's so dirty.
I still get in trouble sometimes in Japan forgetting to take my shoes off when I go in, and they're all far too polite to say anything, and I suddenly realise.
So I always had no doubt about Jon as a person, and I joke that I would like to find my Miss Right or my white horse like you.
Mr. Right.
Mr. Right.
Mr. Right, get that.
Mr. Right, like you. And then it was not until in the summer of 2013 when we had the time and to work together again. And then because it was after the Olympics, the leaders and Chinese coaches are more relaxed, and we had more time together.
We actually talked.
Yeah. So apart from training, we were staying in the same. Is that
Meadowbrook
bungalow? So in the evening, we were just quietly reading together in the lounge, and then chat occasionally. And that's the time probably helped me break all the glasses or obstacles between us, and allows me to really go inside Jon instead of just hindered by the outside of him. And then,
to put it into the bigger picture, I'm sure you're aware that Lili is part of the one-child generation. So because of the huge amount of infanticide, or whatever the word is, in China, there's actually a huge shortage of, and we're talking millions, of girls Lili's age. So, the Chinese are pretty unhappy if any of their ladies marries a Westerner.
Roughly after Jon tried 1.5 years, we finally got together, because I very naturally started to have feelings towards him as well. But we had to make it an underground relationship, unfortunately, because Jon already mentioned none of the Chinese will be happy to see me marrying a Western man, and let alone to live in
especially me. Especially me, old, short,
hairy.
Yeah. I tick all the wrong box. Tanned, that's another very bad one, isn't it?
Yeah, we like a whiter color of skin. And but I did tell my parents. I just we told both of our parents, and
pretty
then
different reactions there.
Yeah, Jon's mom's very happy, whereas my parents tried every way they can to block us. Even I remember at the end of 2013. Oh no, is that right? 2013, yeah. When Jon flew, especially to Shanghai to visit me, to see me. But I was threatened by my parents. You can't go out to see him. If you go, then you will lose it. So I had to choose between my parents or Jon.
Be specific. What did your father actually say to you?
What are you referring to?
Lily's father said that if she went to see me, he would jump out of the window.
Yeah, he tried to threaten me by killing himself. So of course I can't really go out of the door that day. And then we just kept talking. Jon's living in a hotel instead by the airport.
In Shanghai, yeah, great.
And then we just trying to figure out, first of all, how to cool and calm down my parents, because when they're angry, nothing will get into their head. And then we also try to find out a solution of anything they try to go against us. What we can say, for example, if they say Jon's not capable or not having enough money or couldn't provide.
A sailing coach is not a suitable career for.
Yeah, and that trip we didn't meet, and then you flew back to the UK.
I think I changed my flight 3 times. That was it.
Yeah, and then later on, after my parents calmed down a little bit, and then we're still trying to see each other. And then I think in order to spend more time with Jon, that's when I decided to apply for studying Southampton University for my master's degree. And despite the fact that my parents wouldn't give me a penny to support me financially, even though those money are...
It's your money.
Yeah, or I earned from my sailing career or prize money, but they very control it very closely and wouldn't give me a penny.
So from 10 years old, Lily's parents always took a salary, which for 10 years old is quite understandable. At 32, I do find it a little bit harder to understand how your parents still take all your money, but there we go.
Yeah, they're still managing my salary card. Like my card is under my mom's mom's hand, and I just keep my own private money nowadays in order to make a living. And then so in 2014. I came to the UK and sort of start to live permanently in Southampton, studying in uni, and then spent more time with Jon. And then because at that time, real wasn't something in my mind, because I just want to recover from my injuries. Yeah.
I mean, it's a real testament to your character, Jon. Everything was against you, but she really liked you.
Well, I think to be honest, I'm just bloody minded. It's not gonna. It might make me more determined in terms of the 2012 Olympic campaign. Sort of the harder the leaders made it, actually, it made me more determined to help Lily, because I thought this poor girl's had this for 26 years of her life. Come on, you can suck it up for 1 year, for goodness sake. So it made me even more, because I just felt, if she'd had a Western Coats, maybe she would have, 3 medals or whatever. So I think it was the right thing to do. So for me, it was easy to do that.
Yeah, and then I would like to add on for some more other reason that we can't really share with people about the good news about us is because most of the time for sailors, for athletes, when we travel overseas, we use the official passport. And then in all our private passport, which granted us to travel freely and apply all kinds of visa, is under close control in the Sports Bureau department. So if I reveal the secret to any of the Chinese, then they will try every effort. Like my parents, they just threatening me, and they may become more and more understandable of seeing us happily living together. But the Chinese, in order not to risk not able to get together, we keep it until we got married. So Jon mentioned his proposal. That was on my birthday in 2015, exactly roughly the month that I started to campaign for Rio again. And then we planned that to get married after real games. Back into the reason that we can't reveal to everybody. We do apologize anyone who's watching this video or who's still in the darkness, not knowing that we are together. And even though we got married later on, we started to be more at ease, and then no problem let people see or let people know. But before we actually get married, we did try very, very hard not to let our relationship go out to anybody other than our parents. And then, only if I manage to obtain my private passport would I be able to apply for a marriage visa in order to get married with Jon. So that's why even for the Western friends, Western sailors, we don't dare to say a word to them. We just pretend that we're just coaches and sailors. Because if any of the Western sailing friends know, somehow it may travel to the Chinese. So we just keep it away from everybody else. And then, really sorry. We have many close sailing friends in the UK or in the Western world, and that we had to do this. But hope you can understand our situation. And then as soon as I got my private passport and applied the marriage visa, and then we had our small wedding, just Jon's family, my parents, and Jon's university friends. We are at ease now.
I mean, there was a very real danger of Lili having her passport taken away. And I remember when I worked with the team, every time we got to regatta, the leaders would try and take my passport off me. And I'm like, no way, you're not having. So if anyone knows me, that's the real reason I have two passports, one at home and one on me in case I ever got stuck. But yeah, we got married under Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So that was... You see all these Hollywood movies where you're waiting for somebody to come bursting in the back of the door, but it was all good, and we went straight off to a honeymoon in the sort of Lake District, including my mum and Lili's parents, because we couldn't really leave them anywhere. I mean, we got as far as Bicester Village, and Lili's parents wanted to stop and do some shopping, but it was pretty unusual from start to finish.
Originally, my parents even refused to attend our wedding because they still not hoping we get, though they are more at ease now, but they will hope that I can find another tall, rich, handsome, and then or maybe having more power in a political position. But finally, I think luckily they did travel to the UK with us, and then as Jon mentioned, we took them together with our honeymoon, and I just want to let them have a taste of what's UK like, what's our home in Weymouth and Southampton like, and we're very, very open and welcome if they can join us. So I sort of hope that they won't feel completely losing me by marrying a British man.
Now it must feel amazing that you've decided, and it's safe to be able to tell everyone that you're together. What a nice feeling after so long of having to keep it a secret.
Yeah, thank you, Helen, for giving us this opportunity as well to share with more people about this good news.
Thank you so much for joining me. I've loved our chat. Take care.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.